Assalamu alaikum, namaskar, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're on the air with Muheeb Hoque, and welcome back to Let's Talk Education and Career. Today on our program, we will discuss the university application process and look at that process a little bit more in depth. So, last month we had two guests from Bangladesh, and they shared their experience in regards to moving from Bangladesh to coming to Australia and studying at a university. During our conversation, they talked about some of the challenges and gave us some tips, and we briefly touched on the topic of the university application process. So, today on our show, we will discuss this process, and I will take you through some of the steps, some of the requirements, and give you some advice in regards to going around and applying for your universities. So, the application process depends on a few different things. So if you're applying as an undergraduate student or a postgraduate student, or you're applying for a research degree, which is a PhD, the application process varies. Another thing to take into consideration is if you are a domestic student or an international student. So if you're a Canadian Bengali citizen, then you'll be, and going to a Canadian university, then you will be a domestic student. But if you're a Bangladeshi citizen, moving from Bangladesh to go to the UK or Canada or Australia or Ireland, wherever it is, you'll be categorized as an international student. And the application process varies depending on all these different things. So we will start off by talking about the process in regards to an undergraduate student application. All right, so to start off, we'll talk about the academic entry requirement and the documents needed into the undergraduate degree. So if you are going to be studying a bachelor program. So before you apply, make sure that you have all supporting documents. And this will include your certified copies of your academic transcript. Most universities will require you to take an English test. So you would have to have taken an English test like IELTS, TOEFL, Pearson testing. But also before you take those English tests, make sure that your university accepts the English test and what is the requirement. So prior to your application, you would have had to have sat down and taken the test and provide the results with the application. And the other one, of course, is a copy of your passport if you're an international student, or a copy of your identity ID documents if you are a local student going to a university within your country. Now, we will talk a little bit about the actual application when you submit it to the university. So this depends on the country you want to go to. So let's say as a Bangladeshi citizen who just finished your high school in Bangladesh and you want to go to Canada, UK, or Australia, maybe even New Zealand, what you need to do is you're required to apply through an agent, an education agent. So once you've picked a university, let's say you want to go to a university in Australia, you will have to have gone to the university's website, and they would have listed an agent in Bangladesh that is appointed by them to apply for you. Once you found out the agent, you can go to them, tell them that you would like to go to this particular university, have all your documents in place, and they will help you make that application. Actually, depending on the country, using an agent is mandatory. So for example, if you want to come to Australia or New Zealand as a Bangladeshi international student, you'll have to have used an agent to apply for the university, as well as your visa application as well. All right, so to give you a specific example, I will use Australia as a study destination. So if you're coming from Bangladesh to Australia, you would have had to lodge your application through an agent with all your documents. So let's say you've submitted your official academic transcript, your IELTS test result, your official IELTS test result, your copy of your passport. Once you've submitted all that and there's no other documents required, you should receive an offer letter from the university. This is a confirmation that you have been accepted into the university and they have made an offer. It should list the campus of study, the cost of the entire program, the deposit you will need to pay, and most importantly, the program that you've chosen to study. Once you see that offer, what you're required to do is sign that offer, and if there are no further documents required by the university, you will have to send back that signed offer letter back to the university with proof of payment of your first semester's tuition fee, as well as overseas health cover. This is a requirement for Australia, particularly. I know that is the same in New Zealand and the UK as well. Now, this varies from country to country as well. So, for example, in the US, you would also have to pay for your accommodation because you have to stay on campus as an international student. Anyway, so once you've submitted your offer letter, your acceptance of offer, proof of payment, your health cover, the university will issue what we call a confirmation of enrollment. It is only when you have received this confirmation of enrollment you will be able to apply for your student visa. So once you've received the confirmation of enrollment, also known as a COE, you will be able to lodge the visa. Now, the agent that you used to get your offer letter and apply to the university, they will be able to guide you with the visa process as well. They have been officially appointed by the university, and as such, it falls under their responsibility to give you advice in regards to visas. Now, although they give you advice, keep in mind that they're not migration lawyers. So you should always also check the visa information from the appropriate country's Department of Immigration, because they will have the most up-to-date information in regards to what documents you will need to submit in order to apply. So after the student visa application has been lodged, you might need to do a health check. You might even get a call from the department for an interview prior to the grant of your student visa. In regards to these things, you should consult the agent. They should be able to tell you what you require exactly, and be prepared. Now, it's really important that other than taking the agent's help, you should always do your own research as well. This will just make sure that you're prepared for any surprises that might come your way. Now, that was an overview of the application process, and I took you through some of the basic documents that you will need in order to apply. Moving forward, I would like to talk about some additional documents that you may need to submit if you are studying different programs. So this really depends on the program of your study. So let me use an example. For example, if you're studying nursing, you will need to submit a police clearance, a record of your vaccinations. If you're studying medicine, you may or may not have to attend an interview. If you're studying music, you will need to either do an audition or supply a portfolio. So these are just some additional documents that you will need to submit during the application. Your agent should be able to give you good advice in regards to any additional requirements that you may need to follow. I'm going to use Australia as an example now and tell you a little bit more about other additional documents that may or may not be required. So for example, in Australia's case, students are required to submit a statement of purpose. If they have a large gap, a work experience letter, and in some cases as well, their resume. So these additional documents obviously vary from country to country, from university to university, and of course it's a case-by-case basis. Now, your agent should be able to give you further information when you make the application in regards to any additional documents that you may or may not need to submit. Now, with the application process, I want to highlight a few points, and these are really important for you to take into consideration when you're applying. Number one is if the university you're applying to has any sort of deadline or not. Number two is, in order to meet that deadline, you have to make sure that all your academic documents are there with you, and they're certified original copies, as well as your original copy of your English result, an official English result, and all your identification documents. Give yourself enough time to gather all these documents and apply to a university before the deadline. The other thing that you need to take into consideration is the visa lodgement process, because it does take some time to get the visa process completed. So you need to give yourself enough time to get all these different things done so that you can make it to the university for your orientation. My personal advice to every student would be to create a timeline to make sure that you're tracking the progress of your application. So, this was the overview of the undergraduate or bachelor application process for a university. Now, I will briefly touch on the process for postgraduate or master's programs, as well as any research programs like PhD. First of all, a Master of Coursework is pretty much like the undergraduate application process, except for you will need to submit additional documents such as your bachelor's transcript and your degree certificate, as well as work experience letters. The other master's program is called Master by Research. It is very similar to the PhD application process. So, for example, you will need to have had a thesis topic or a proposal ready when you make an application to the university. Often, at a university, you will be required to contact a supervisor prior to your application lodgement. Now, this is not for all universities. Some universities will help you find a supervisor. Other universities might tell you to find one of your choice prior to your application. One thing that you need to keep in mind when you're choosing a supervisor is that you find someone who is an expert in the field that you're interested in, and you should contact them and they will be able to tell you if they would like to supervise your research or not. Now, those were some of the differences between an undergraduate and a master by research or PhD application process. That would be all for now. Next month, we will have an expert in regards to intercultural communication, and we will speak about some of the common challenges of international students when they adjust to life in a new culture. We will touch on topics like culture shock, homesickness, and other challenges faced in a new environment. Until next time, I hope you enjoyed our episode, and thank you for listening.